The Panthers have to cut down their roster to 53 men by Tuesday afternoon. Who's going to make it? Who's not going to make the cut? I'll tell you right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because next week on Wednesday, it's back, the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers every single Wednesday throughout the regular season here on the show. All you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter or at me on Blue Sky at Julian Council to get your questions in right now. And of course, next week, heading into the weekly Wednesday mailbag here on Locked On Panthers. This is the week we find out who the initial 53 men who will be on the roster. Then we'll find out the other 16 men who will be signed to the practice squad. And there will also be some roster changes potentially that happen later on this week, depending upon maybe trades or waiver wire claims and all of that. This is where it all comes into focus this week. But also understand this. The roster is not final. It's not set. It will be ever-changing, ever-evolving throughout the year. Guys who make the team now are not guaranteed to be on the team come next week. And come week 5, week 9, week 10, etc. It will change, but still, it is important to figure out who Carolina thinks can help them right now and what position groups they think maybe they should be looking at even after they initially cut the roster down from 90 to 53 guys. We'll talk about that a little bit later on here on the show. Let's go ahead and start off with my final initial 53-man roster projections for your Carolina Panthers heading into the 2025 season. And we'll start off on the offensive side of the ball. Quarterback. They're keeping 2. This is probably the most straightforward of all the position groups out there. It's Bryce Young, it's Andy Dalton, and that's it. By this point in time, if you've watched and listened to the show since the emergency third quarterback rule, you should know that I think it's a complete waste of a roster spot unless it's like a Taysom Hill who really isn't a quarterback anymore, or it's Joe Webb back when he was here in Carolina, a guy who can play special teams. Why on earth would you waste a spot on somebody who's not going to help you and who you don't want to see play at all? Maybe if you're the Browns with Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett, they're going to keep a combination of those 3 behind Joe Flacco to continue to develop. All right, cool. It's stupid to me, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Maybe you think it's worthwhile. Cleveland might think it's worthwhile. They also stink. But yeah, it's going to be Bryce, it's going to be Andy, and then I would anticipate that Jack Plummer is back on the practice squad to continue his development or whatever they're calling what it is that they're doing with Jack Plummer here in Carolina. Not that big of a deal. Need to have a third quarterback on the practice squad, not on the active roster. He's been here. Sure, let it play out again for another season, and then we'll see what happens down the road. But it's Bryce and Andy. Those are the real quarterbacks on the roster here this upcoming season. Running back, also felt like this one was pretty easy. Chuba Hubbard signed that 4-year extension back in November last year before heading over to Germany, where he had a career day there in Munich. Rico Dowdle, who they signed this offseason, coming off of a 1,000-yard rushing season. The only running back duo in the NFL heading into 2025, where both of the players are coming off of 1,000-yard rushing seasons, both career years for Hubbard and Dowdle, respectively. Those are the top 2 guys. I'm expecting it to be primarily Chuba with plenty of Rico sprinkled in there. And then behind them is the 4th-round pick out of the University of Georgia, Trevor Etienne, who's won the job at kickoff returner and punt returner over Raheem Blackshear. And this has been something that was set in stone by week 2 of the preseason down there in Houston when we saw Raheem Blackshear not returning punts or kickoffs. And that was Trevor Etienne, Jimmy Horn Jr. getting those opportunities. And then Blackshear gets injured on Thursday with an ankle injury against Pittsburgh, which I hope is not going to impact his ability to sign off another team elsewhere, because he does have a good amount of experience as a returner. Returned more kickoffs last year than any other return man in the NFL. The numbers, though, weren't great. And yes, larger sample size, but still the numbers weren't great for him. But I do think he'll get another opportunity elsewhere in the league, can be a third down back, can be a returner. Carolina just wanted to elevate that spot, and they're thinking they're doing that by drafting Trevor Etienne and now putting him in this position. So 3 running backs on a roster: Hubbard, Dowdle, and Etienne. And then we'll see what happens. Raheem Blackshear could always bring him back in the practice squad, but I think he'll have value somewhere else in the NFL. Wide receiver. We've talked a lot about these guys and how many the Panthers would keep. Go all the way back to the end of mandatory minicamp in the middle of June. Dave Canales said that preseason games will matter if they end up keeping 7. And we have crunched numbers and we have thought about, okay, if they only keep 6, it's these guys. Only keep 7, it's these guys. Will they trade somebody? As of this recording, that has not happened. But we have sat here and we have thought about it. I have them keeping 7. The 7 are Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, Ketero McMillan. Those are the top 3 guys in Carolina. Behind them, Jalen Coker, who really balled out in the second half of preseason and in training camp and has proven himself to be a valuable asset also on special teams, which the number 4 wide receiver on a team has to play when there's only 48 guys active on game days in the NFL. You have Hunter Renfrow also making the team as someone who could return punts, play special teams, but would be that 4th or 5th receiver depending upon what the game plan is. I got Jimmy Horn Jr. making it. They took him in the 6th round. That does not guarantee you anything. It was curious that on Thursday evening against Pittsburgh, he did not get an opportunity until the second half. And Dave Canales said it was about getting to see TJ Luther and Jacoby George and Colby Hudson and the other receivers that I don't have making a roster, but that could certainly be on the practice squad, was getting them an opportunity with Jack Plummer. Whereas you saw in the second half with Bryce Perkins, who did not really know the offense, and the offensive line wasn't great for him. Hard to evaluate those guys in that certain situation. So maybe it wasn't a conspiracy against Jimmy Horn Jr. and that, oh, this is a coaching staff doesn't know how to utilize him. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just they wanted to see other guys, but it certainly made me go, when that happened on Thursday. But I have Jimmy making the team. He's got plenty of speed. If they cut him, I don't think they get him back after waivers. I don't think he clears. He's on another roster. He can help him out down the road. I don't know how much he's going to help him out this season, which is fine. He's a 6th-round pick. Doesn't need to be an impact player this year in this receiver room. So I have him making it. And then the final guy is Bryson Tremaine. Did not play on Thursday because of general soreness. That was the same reason why Ketero McMillan, the 8th overall pick, did not play. General soreness. So if that is a reason why you're holding somebody out, you clearly are expecting to keep this guy around for the long haul. And if you look at training camp practice and the preseason, Bryson Tremaine has earned a job on this roster. And I think back to something that Brant Tillis, the EVP of football operations here in Carolina, who handles salary cap and contracts. He was talking about Turk Wharton back when they had Turk in Kansas City. It was during a pandemic when he first came in from Missouri Science and Technology was the school he went to, which I don't know where that's at in Missouri, but that's where he went to school, small school. And he came in and he was battling his ass off and so clearly deserved to be on the initial 53. And they thought that, okay, potentially we could just stow him away. No team in the league has really seen him, so we're good. But he also felt like, just for the integrity of the roster, how can we tell that guy he has not made it? How can we try to stow him away, get him to clear waivers, and then re-sign him later? That's kind of the same thing with Bryson Tremaine. No one's saying that, but if you just look at what he's done, I know you weren't able to go to training camp, but if you looked at what he did against Houston in the preseason, where he's the Panthers' best receiver that day, the 4th guy to actually step out on the field behind Thielen, behind Legette, and behind McMillan, how can you not have him make the initial 53-man roster? He can also help out on special teams. He has earned the spot. So with Thielen, Leggett, McMillan, Coker, Renfro, Horn Jr., and Tremaine making it, that means that David Moore is the odd man out. I will tell you this. I will not be surprised at all if it's David Moore over Jimmy Horn Jr. or if it's David Moore over Hunter Renfro. I would not be surprised. Dave Canales went into the length at which he was talking about Jimmy Horn Jr., how they have a young coach who spends a ton of time with Jimmy Horn, and that's exactly what he did back in the first 2 years for David Moore in Seattle. Those guys are tight. David Moore's come out and said that he only wants to play for Dave Canales. He wants to play here in Carolina. So the Panthers cut him because they know they can cut him. They can bring him back later on after week 1. But it's the guy who's a leader in the locker room, very respected, played well for what they asked him to do last year. Would not surprise me if he makes a team. And I wanted to go out on a limb and project him, but it's just still so difficult because it just makes more sense for Carolina to do this move and then bring him back later instead of risking not being able to keep some of these younger guys around. So 7 receivers, Adam Thielen, Xavier Leggett, Tedero McMillan, Jalen Coker, Hunter Renfro, Jimmy Horn Jr., Bryson Tremaine. Tight end. I felt like they could have kept 4, and I could still see them keeping 4, but I think it's going to end up being 3. Jatavian Sanders, Tommy Trimble, and then the rookie out of Notre Dame, Mitchell Evans. If they keep a 4th, it's going to be James Mitchell, who the former Virginia Tech Hokie, started off his career in Detroit. I think he's a capable player and would have value on the roster, whether he's on the active roster or if he's on the practice squad. That is someone who I think the Panthers really need to find a way to keep around if he's not going to be on the 53. So we'll see if that plays out. This is one where I struggled with it because I feel like he should be on there, but just some of the other numbers across the roster, in particular wide receiver. When you have 7 wide receivers, that's going to impact numbers elsewhere. And it's not to say all 7 of those guys stick around after Tuesday because of the waiver claims they can put out there. But yeah, I have James Mitchell just on the outside looking in, but would not be surprised if he makes it. Then offensive line, I have them keeping 10. Ike Ekwonu back for his 4th season starting at left tackle. Damian Lewis, 2nd year at left guard. Dave Canales said he should be ready to go week 1 down in Jacksonville. Austin Corbett, the starting center. Robert Hunt in his 2nd year at right guard here in Carolina. Then Taylor Moton, the newly re-signed extended Taylor Moton, Panther for life at right tackle for his 9th season here in Carolina, 8th as a starter. Brady Christensen, he's back as the 6th offensive lineman. Yosh Nijman is back as well. Cade Mays is back. Chandler Zavala. And then I have them keeping Jarrett Kingston. He was somebody who I talked about during our interior offensive line preview back in either June or July. It's been a little bit since we did it here on the show, that he was somebody to look out for because he had been on the roster a couple of weeks last year, had played a little bit. He was somebody who I thought if they were going to keep 10, could make the team. And Ja'Tyre Carter was ahead of him, but then he got banged up the last couple of weeks, and Kingston showed his versatility where Carter is more of a guard. So I think the versatility that's been shown from Jarrett Kingston, plus his experience here already on the roster in Carolina, he's the guy who gets the final nod there on the offensive line as they keep 10. That's 25 guys on offense, which means there's 25 on defense. Who are those 25? I'll tell you here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rougiette might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on who you think is going to win the MVP race this year. Crown your champion in August. The Buckeyes won. J-Lo got divorced. We all know it by this point in time. Are you going to go ahead and bet on Carolina or parlay your division winner dark horse, who could absolutely be the Carolina Panthers in the NFC South? Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. 25 men on the offense I have initially for the Carolina Panthers as they reach cutdown day on Tuesday. How about for defense? Or also, if you just do the math, there's 3 on special teams, 25 on offense. That means 25 on defense. And here are the 25, starting with the defensive line, an area that was a complete disaster last year because Derek Brown tore his meniscus and the guys behind him, not A'Shawn Robinson, he played well, but everybody else left a lot to be desired. And Carolina went out there this offseason looking to have the same impact on that position room as they had last year on the offensive line when they went out and spent big money on Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. This year, they spent big money on Bobby Brown III and Turk Wharton and brought back Derek Brown. All 3 of those guys obviously are on the roster along with A'Shawn Robinson. The question was, who was going to be the 5th guy? Was it going to be Cam Jackson, the 5th-round pick from Florida, Jaden Crumedy, the 6th-rounder from Mississippi State from a year ago, Shai Tuttle, the vet who had taken a pay cut back in the spring? Would it end up being LeBron Ray, who was here last year as well? Well, LeBron Ray had an ankle sprain, did not bounce back the way they were hoping, could not play on Thursday. That eliminated him. Shai Tuttle, the fact that they asked him to take a pay cut and that it's not punitive at all for them to get rid of him, that eliminates him. And then it came down to, who do you value more? The 5th rounder you took this year or the 6th rounder you took last year who barely played for you and was not healthy? Well, I'm going with Cam Jackson. The fact that he was healthy out there on Thursday, was able to play, that was huge. He has not been a big piece of this defense this offseason so far. And the fact that they have those 4 guys, and Brown, Robinson, Brown III, and Wharton, like, they're good as far as the tube deep goes. If they need someone to step in, let it be a guy who can really be a space eater and stop the run more than anything. And that's what Cam Jackson provides in a 5th-round pick. That is quality over a 6th-rounder who didn't really play for you last year. And just the fact that they brought in 2 guys who were veterans, and then they drafted him right after they had drafted Crumedy a year ago, pretty much tells you where they're at with Jaden Crumedy, at least in my opinion. Could be wrong, but I'm taking Derek Brown, A'Shawn Robinson, Bobby Brown III, Turk Wharton, and then Cam Jackson as the 5 on the interior defensive line here in Carolina. Outside linebackers, I'm taking 5 as well. DJ Woonem back for his 2nd year, fully healthy heading into the season. Let's see what a fully healthy DJ Woonem looks like in this defense. Nick Scorton, the 2nd-round pick who had to collapse lung during joint practice with the Texans a couple of weeks ago. Dave Canales said last week, I think it was on Friday morning when speaking to the media, the morning as they had just extended Taylor Moton, he said that Nick Scorton should actually be back on the practice field this week, which puts him in position to be ready to go week 1 down in Jacksonville. So he's on the team. Pat Jones II, who they signed to a multi-year deal this offseason, he's also here. Princely Uman had a shoulder issue. Sounds like he's going to be fine as well. 3rd-round pick from back in April. Those are the top 4. And then it came down to DJ Johnson and Thomas Incoom. And Lord knows how y'all feel about DJ Johnson. It was not a pick that I was enamored by when they took him. They traded up with Pittsburgh to get 80th overall pick to take DJ Johnson, who was a 25-year-old edge rushing prospect at the NFL level, formerly a tight end, became an edge rusher once he got to Eugene to play for the Ducks. And we have seen that project not really play out in a positive way. And in the fact that he's been injured and banged up through the majority of preseason and camp, including not being able to play on Thursday, that does not bode well for him. So I'm taking Thomas Incoom instead, who can play special teams and has also showing way more juice as a pass rusher than we have ever seen out of DJ Johnson here in Carolina. So that would mean that Chandler Zavala and, of course, Bryce Young would be the last of the class of 2023. Only 5 guys to stick around here in Carolina, with Johnson not making the team, Mingo being traded away last year at the deadline, and Jimmy Robinson not making the team last season. So 5 outside linebackers: Wanham, Scorton, Monmielen, Pat Jones II, and Incum. Linebackers, I'm taking 6. It sounds like a lot, but if you're going to have 7 wide receivers, you're going to need other guys at other spots to be able to play special teams. And that's what you're getting out of the linebacker group. So you got Trevor Wallace, you have Christian Roseboom, Chris Barnes, who has not been here long, but he's a veteran. And that's an area they were trying to address after Josie Jewell's surprise waving being cut before training camp, or like at least the day 1 of training camp. So him being dismissed from the team, like that was a surprise. So they need to go out there and get a veteran. They got Chris Barnes, who's last in Green Bay, I believe. Then the other 3 are Claude Sherrillis, who can play special teams, John Radican, special teamer, and then Jacoby Windman, who can also play special teams and has started a couple times last year along with Sherrillis because of injuries. So those are the 6, and these are the core special teamers. I'll also say this: if there is going to be a position group that may have somebody let go after the waiver wire, I think linebacker might be. We'll talk more about that momentarily. Corner, got 5: J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson, Shaw Smith-Wade. Those are your starters. Corey Thornton has earned a roster spot and will be the 4th corner, and also can be a guy who can play in the nickel and on the outside. And then the 5th one was tough because, like, they got to have 5 at this point in time. This player's really struggled. Shamar Bartholomew, I've got him making the team. He's given up a touchdown in every single week of the preseason this year. Caleb Evans didn't really show a ton. Maybe he was able to surpass him because Bartholomew did not start that game on Thursday, but I'm going to go with Shamar, even though I'll tell you a little bit later, I'm not so confident the 5th guy is going to be here past Tuesday anyways. Safety, there's 4 guys: Trevon Merrick, Damani Richardson, Lathan Ransom, and then Nick Scott. Merrick and Scott apparently will be the starters, with Richardson and Ransom sprinkle in there as well. That was also a pretty straightforward group. And will they add another one? We will see. Then special teams, got Sam Martin, the punter, JJ Jansen back once again, and then I'm going to go with Ryan Fitzgerald. Not giving Matthew Wright a kick at the end of Thursday. Maybe there's not much to read into there. It was still a weird decision. Why not just kick it? Let's see what happens. Get one more opportunity for him to make a field goal and have a kickoff, one more piece of evaluation. I guess they've seen enough of him. I'm just going to go with the younger guy who has a big leg and has made 43 and 52 yarders in the preseason, and Ryan Fitzgerald. So, yeah, he makes it with Sam Martin and J.J. Jansen. Those are the initial 53 men to make the roster here in Carolina, at least who I believe will make the roster come Tuesday afternoon. Once that happens, Panthers will have a chance to place in a waiver claim. What position groups could potentially be picked off if they decide to do that, and what groups will they be aiming to add towards? I'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can always find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league, Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew, no problem. Join a public league, the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, we call it the initial 53-man roster because, no, the roster's not finalized. There's not a single team in the NFL this year that's going to put out 53 names on Tuesday, and every single one of those players will last on the roster the entire season because injuries are going to happen. They're going to maybe get cut from the team. They'll be traded. A whole assortment of things are going to happen over the course of the 18 weeks, plus that going into the playoffs during this 2025 regular season and then playoff season here in the NFL this year. So looking at Carolina, I've already given you the 53 guys who I think are going to make the team. Let's talk about the waiver wire, because that is going to be something that's very important for the Panthers. And because they drafted 8th overall back in April, they will have the 8th waiver wire claim. We saw last year they had the number 1 claim. That was the perks of being the worst team in the league the year prior, making history, being the first 2-15 team in the history of the National Football League, thanks to the 17-game schedule. So they got to take 6 guys. And of those 6, only Shamar Bartholomew and Jacoby Windman, sorry, not Jacoby Windman, John Radigan even stuck around, and only really Radigan had played for them as they effectively redshirted Bartholomew last year as he was trying to learn the system, and now putting him in a position where I think at least for now he makes the roster, but will he be around? Like, that's the thing. So they're keeping 7 receivers. Say a trade does not materialize between Carolina and the Vikings for Adam Thielen. Thielen, Leggett, McMillan are the top 3 guys. Jalen Coker will have a role. Hunter Renfrow, I believe, will have a role. And then Jimmy Horn Jr., special teams-wise, Bryson Tremaine, special teams-wise as well. That's going to be one of those things where if they pick up from another position group, maybe they didn't decide that, okay, as much as we love you, Bryson Tremaine, we're going to waive you because you're our 7th guy. Or it could be the same conversation they have Hunter Renfrow or Jimmy Horn Jr. I don't know where they're going to have those guys rated as far as how they can help them. So keep that in mind, because we saw last year, while they kept Amir Smith-Marset and your boy Jalen Coker, both guys were waived. Now, fortunately for Carolina, they were able to get back Jalen Coker. Smith-Marset was injured, so not a big deal. Had some choice words to say about Carolina on his way out, which, it is what it is. That's another group. Again, like last year, they had 7 initially and only ended up with 5. I have a hard time seeing them only have 5. I think 6 is probably the magic number there for them to have this year to make an actual roster sense. So watch out for that. Offensive line, Jared Kingston could be the odd man out if they decide to add via waiver claims, if they're able to at least get a successful claim put out there. He would be the one I'd be concerned about. And then like linebacker, don't doubt that they may still want to get another veteran in there. Maybe they're not in love with what Chris Barnes has shown them. Maybe they want to add somebody else in there and then get rid of Jacoby Windman. I'm guessing that person's going to need to be a special teams kind of player in order to make the roster and stick around after waiver claims. But that would be a spot where I think, and then certainly corner, if they can, and I think they need to, they can find another veteran truly to come in and to replace Shamar Bartholomew and to have that veteran be behind JC and Mike Jack and hell, maybe really behind Shaw Smith Wade in the slot, I'd feel better about that cornerback room. Like, I don't feel concerned about them right now, I suppose, but it's just like the depth. If JC goes down again, knock on wood, I don't feel really great about. I mean, Corey Thornton I thought was pretty impressive, but I don't feel great about him throughout the entirety of his season. Certainly don't feel great about Shamar Bartholomew right now. That's just the way I'm looking at it with that. So that would be a position I think that should be at the top of their list as far as waiver wire claims that they place in after the initial cut down. And then safety, They could add another one. I saw that Kyle Duggar from New England is somebody who is actually being shopped right now. He's been a starter. I don't know whether he fits this scheme. He played at Lenore Ryan, so he'd be coming back to Carolina, back to the Carolinas, or at least North Carolina. So maybe that's something to look into, depending on what the price is, what his contract is. But yeah, I would look at corner, safety, linebacker spots that they may try to address according to the waiver wire claim. And then potentially they cut a linebacker or a guy like Shamar Bartholomew, an offensive lineman, and maybe one of those receivers to open up space, depending on how many of those waiver wire claims are successful. Again, the eighth claim, the eighth spot on the claim. So not going to be able to get 6, I wouldn't think, like they did last year. But TBD. That's why throughout the preseason, I told you it's not just these guys are auditioning for this team. It's the rest of the league. And Carolina's looking at the other 31 teams, trying to figure out who on that team could help them out. Kicker, another one. Looking at the kicker that they had out there for Pittsburgh, Boswell's going to be the guy, not Sauls. He could be maybe the kicker. So don't be surprised if they go outside the building to go bring in somebody else over Ryan Fitzgerald or Matthew Wright, depending on who ends up initially making the team here in Carolina. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe or follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because next Wednesday, the weekly Wednesday mailbag is back all throughout the regular season here on the show. At me or DM me or at me over on Blue Sky to get those questions into me once time is right. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. And tomorrow, we'll talk about what we learned during the preseason. Maybe there'll be some breaking news, and also maybe talk about some bigger questions about the Panthers roster heading into cutdown day on Tuesday. All that coming up on Locked On Panthers.